It's fairly common knowledge that the British tend to have a more reserved and formal demeanour than those across the pond.
I'll just fire away then, shall I?
British people are generally less direct, less loud, and less apt to wear their hearts on their sleeves than US Americans. These traits are often reflected in British actors, pop stars, and sporting professionals. But this trend also filters into the motivational, thrill-seeking public figures who inspire self-improvement and personal growth amongst emerging generations.
Good, 22!
Who's gonna carry the boats and the logs?
That's you, buddy!
I believe that comfort comes at a cost. To know what you're truly capable of, you've got to push beyond your limits.
Show him the real warrior! Here we are today! It's 25 degrees! Mr. Scott, stay hard, brother!
What we're doing right now is based on something called the SAID principle in sports science.
Being out of shape, it limits all of your fucking options. So showing up to Eating Dead in the best shape of your life, what that does is it opens up all of your fucking options.
Now, the vast majority of you clicking on this video will know David Goggins, a retired US Navy SEAL who turned to ultramarathons and public speaking to share his elite mindset with the world. He's gone viral across all social media platforms, becoming a staple in the grind culture space and motivating many people, both young and old, to basically better themselves. But in the UK resides a somewhat similar endurance athlete seeking to motivate and educate an often static and pessimistic population. His name is Ross Edgley. In line with the British and American comparison, Ross effectively represents a more formal and reserved version of David Goggins. While Goggins is brash and commanding in how he conveys his message, akin largely to that of a drill sergeant, Ross symbolises a softer touch, an arm around the shoulder perhaps. Yet the overwhelming principle behind their respective messages is very much the same.
Because I know there's so many people that have the ability and just refuse to get off that couch. It's so easy to be great nowadays, my friend, because most people are weak.
This notion of people becoming weak through losing their mental and physical robustness is ultimately what drove Edgley to rise to national prominence. Both men are inspired by figures who accomplished extraordinary feats, displaying mental fortitude and effectively encompassing a set of values which are becoming few and far between in today's society. Pillars of bygone eras. Goggins cites Scott Gearon, a former para-rescueman, as his primary motivator. On February the 4th, 1987, Scott Gearon made his 90th jump above the Virginia countryside. At 3,500 feet, he opened his parachute, but another team member, still in freefall, proceeded to plunge straight through Gearon's chute. Gearon fell for over 3,000 feet before hitting the earth at just over 100 miles per hour. Despite the impact fracturing his face and hospitalizing him for over 3 months, he would return to jumping only 18 months later. Goggins would visit Gearon later in his life, ultimately convincing him to become a Navy SEAL and refine his bulletproof mindset. Ross Edgley also draws inspiration from and has looked to emulate those who overcame impossible obstacles, pushing the boundaries of humanity's limitations.
And for me, growing up, there was a story of Captain Webb, so the first guy to swim across the English Channel. And for those who don't know, English Channel, the tides they believed were too strong, the water was too cold. They said you just can't make it across the English Channel, it's impossible. But Captain Webb refused to listen, and 1875 August crossed the English Channel, and this is the part I love. On a diet of beef broth and brandy in a woolen wetsuit, he swam, I think it was 23 hours, breaststroke, with his head out of the water.
Drawing upon Webb's experience, Edgley states in his book, persistence, valour and intestinal fortitude bonds great feats of human endeavour throughout history, and yet, now as a species, we are losing our ancient age-old ability for superhuman resilience. In 2005, Goggins ran an ultramarathon consisting of over 3,100 miles without taking any days off, something no one had ever achieved before. But what proves the mental resilience and impressiveness of such a feat is the condition of Goggins' body at the time and the constraints he was facing.
Deformed so much from you running with bone on bone that it was starting to like swell out in one direction.
This happened back in 2001. I was going through buds. This right here has been going on for a long time.
In 2007, he would run 205 miles in 39 hours non-stop around a 1-mile track whilst battling further intense adversity.
You know, you're not supposed to have a hole in your heart and be a SEAL. And
Were you born with it?
I was born with it. Man, it's after I ran like 205 miles, you know?
Right.
Like, man, you're in great shape. I'm like, man, I just don't feel good.
Edgley has also had to overcome substantial adversity. In 2018, he swam around Great Britain in just 157 days, swimming around 12 hours per day, consuming between 10,000 and 15,000 calories, and covering a total of 1,791 miles. Edgley truly accomplished the unthinkable. Yet, similar to Goggins, he was compelled to overcome significant limitations.
Michael Phelps stands 6'4" with an enormous wingspan of 6'7", creating the elongated stroke that has broken 25 individual world records.
Now, there are some strong statistics that support the theory that being tall is an advantage for swimming. For example, at the Rio Olympics in 2016, the average height for the male finalists was 6'2" or 188 centimeters.
Ross Edgley, however, only stands at 5'8" or 174 centimeters, which is considered below average in the UK. Of all the naysayers prior to Ross Edgley's attempt to swim around Great Britain, some of the most vocal were actually sports scientists who pointed to his 5'8" chunky frame and claimed that he had no physical attributes of an elite swimmer, and if he entered the water, he would simply sink like a stone.
The more you push the body, the more you start to realize that you can override that central governor theory, that innate sort of desire for self-preservation.
In his book, Edgley cites his belief in the 40% rule, arguing that Navy SEALs coined the term believing that when your mind is telling you that you're done, that you're exhausted, that you cannot possibly go any further, you're actually only 40% done. This principle appears to be a constant in the best endurance athletes.
So the 40% rule is like we have like a car. Some cars have a governor on it. We have put this governor on our minds. And you have to, the factory that put the governor on that car, the factory is now you. That put that shit on your fucking mind. You gotta take that motherfucker off.
Yet the 40% rule means nothing if you are incapable of offsetting even the most tumultuous fits of discomfort. As the Roman emperor and philosopher Marcus Aurelius declared, unpleasant sensations are bound to impinge upon our awareness because of the natural sympathy between the body and mind. But we should accept the presence even of these rough sensations with total indifference.
But what I found is when I'm swimming and my tongue's falling off, I've got a jellyfish on my face, you know, I'm in an Arctic storm. And that's where I think Stoicism helped me so much. Just looking at, you know, controlling the controllables, accepting the uncontrollables.
No, man, your struggle is what made you who you are now. So I started flipping this into a whole different, I started being a master of what I was scared of. I was scared of my mind. And I became literally a master of that mind.
Both men preach Stoicism as a mechanism to ultimately anticipate and mitigate bad things when they occur. Whether that be when experiencing excruciating knee pain halfway through a marathon or being stung by a poisonous jellyfish, we all face trials and tribulations which are effectively outside of our control. But what Edgley and Goggins both expertly emphasise is that consistency and resilience ensures control over factors within our own grasp. After all, mastery of the mind guarantees exceptional results. I wanted to make this video for a couple of reasons. Firstly, to shed light upon Britain's greatest endurance athlete, in my opinion. Now, there have been shouts about him using performance enhancers, but regardless of this fact, it's still clear that he is an absolute beast. Secondly, to underline the strength of David Goggins' message, as it transcends borders, ultramarathons, and is ultimately a staple in the lives of many high-flying driven individuals. Thirdly, I'd run out of topics to cover in videos, so if you can help me out with that, please leave your suggestions in the comments. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, subscribe if you're new, and why not like the video to show some support. All the best guys, see you soon.